So over here the address is kind of odd. I got multiple numbers or address numbers that look the same, but they're different. So this is a koi coffee shop right here. I was looking for a koi farm, but it doesn't seem like the previous address I went to was accurate. So here, but here now it says 6 koi farm right here. So we're gonna go here and see if this is what I'm looking for. I mean, I'll drink some coffee if there's koi around, and if there's no coffee and there's koi, then I'll look at koi. Simple as that. This is a nice looking garden though. Look at this. Wow, look at that, huh? Nice. Sao vậy? Mình uống cà phê nè. Well, there's koi here. I see koi. I don't see a koi farm yet, but it's a starting point. Alright, let's talk to some people here and see. Yeah, hold on. So here I was talking to the front desk about the koi farm and whether or not I got the right or the wrong address. Basically, I showed up and this place was called Dallas Koi Coffee, and I was a little confused. So talking to the two guys in the front counter, they were telling me that they do indeed have a koi farm in the back, but the storefront is actually a coffee shop. So you can sit here, enjoy some coffee, and if you were interested in looking at the koi, there's someone in the back who knows about the koi operation that can come up and talk to you about it. So basically, they said that they were gonna call somebody and have that person show us what the kois look like in the back. So let's see if they'll show us here. Yeah, so behind this coffee shop is actually a koi farm, according to them. I just want to see what it's like. So here, we're just checking around, and his is, I believe, the owner or the operator. He came and let us know that they do have something in the back, and he walked us towards the back of where the ponds are. We decided that we'll come back and look at the koi first before returning to get the coffee. As we're walking through here, the back or the middle section is actually a greenhouse, and if you look around, they do have a lot of nice plants and different type of trees in this area. He's opens up the gate, the door I should say, towards the back, which looks like a very standard koi keeping facility. And you see the bins here, got multiple different holding tanks, all made from concrete. And I was browsing around, looking at different things, and he was still on the phone before I got a chance to talk to him. Not all of the tanks were filled with water and running. This one in particular was the largest one that was present at this site, and I didn't want to disturb his operation by asking him to turn off the water pump or anything like that. I was just the one who came and was looking at the fish, trying to see what they have on this site. He was generous enough to show me, and I let him know ahead of time that My intention wasn't really to purchase any koi, but I just wanted to make some recordings and see, where and how some of the koi farms in Vietnam are keeping the fish. So during this time, I was looking at the fish in this tank because this was the most noticeable tank in operation, and he was holding a lot of the big fish here. And they were very nice quality fish. I mean, you can see from the footage that we got some yamabuki, maybe one or two karashiwoi. There's a hiusuri. He's got some gosanke. Then there's some ginrin chow going here, as well as some ochiba, I believe. But the fish in this area were being held in preparation to being sold. So the ones in this tank have not been sold yet. That's what he was explaining to me. And he's keeping them here until someone purchased them. Then it gets transferred to a different tank on the other side. And then here I was trying to get a footage of this tank right here. It's a tank with a lot more smaller fish, and this tank is almost like his grow out tank. That's what he was explaining. Some of the fish here were like, I want to say maybe 7-8 inches. And here he's got his baki shower. It's a 3-tier shower that uses, I think, matting as a filtration media. On this tank, he was showing us baby ranchu goldfish. He's got a bunch of them in this tank, and they were tiny though, but they were like hundreds of them, I think, and maybe they were like an inch or smaller. They don't really look like the typical ranchu that you see because, normally they're a lot bigger when you see them in the store, but here they're just babies. And he was showing my wife what they look like on the phone. To be honest, the goldfish want my area of interest. So I took the camera and started recording in this other pond right here. This one, some of these ponds over there, I couldn't get a good footage or clear footage because of the fence that he had on. So we continue just recording on this pond where the fish are just more visible and it's easier to walk onto the walkway that he had. And at this point, I was asking if would it be okay if he brought some of the fish up closer to take a look at it. So I thought I saw one that looked quite nice, and he went ahead and started netting it, but we weren't gonna really take it out and put it on the bowl, and he was just netting it to try to get it closer. And we put this nice Kimchi Masuba onto the net. Dragged it a little closer to get a nicer look at it. And if you look at it, it's actually quite a nice fish. And then I started talking to him about, the size of the fish, the breeder, and even got a little nosy and started asking him about the pricing. This fish right here, he said that it's from Dainichi koi farm, so it's Japanese, a Japanese breeder, as most of us would know. As a matter of fact, all the fish in this tank are from Dainichi, according to him. I think this one, he measured it at around 70 cm. And think the pricing, if you convert it to US dollars, was about maybe like a little over 2,000 for that fish. And here's the other one that he netted up. At first I thought this was a karashi, but he said that this was a yamabuki, and this one is closer to 80 centimeter. It's a pretty big fish. You can see that obviously it kind of wanted to get out, but he held it there for a minute or two for me to take a look at it. It had a nice pattern, but the yellow wasn't the strongest I've seen, so that's why I was a little confused. I thought it was a karashi woi. And then here I think he netted the next one that was of interest. I think he was looking at a shusui fish, which is a scaleless fish here. And this time, I think we got him on this corner where there was less wave and less water movement, and to get a nicer look. This fish has a nice, intense, like red color. The top pattern was pretty nice too. But I think looking at it carefully, I saw that on the head there was a black spot that kind of just stood out, so it wasn't the cleanest looking head coloration, or lack of coloration there. So it would just be netted up to get a closer look. Nothing in particular about price on this fish. I only asked once. I didn't want to just keep asking how much things would cost, because I know everyone has different valuation, and the way the sellers would sell the fish can be based on a number of things as well. But this fish was around 22, 23 inch. So a lot of the fish in this tank were between at least 20. Some of them were over 30 inches, as you can probably already see. And then I was curious to understand where the filtration for this tank was, because on this tank I can see the shower, right? But then on the bigger tank here, where he's holding the big fish, I didn't see any filtration. And then he was explaining to me that the space where I was standing on, under those wood planks, is a separate like sump tank, and that's where the biofiltration was taking place. So underneath he has mattings and brushes, and that's how the biofiltration, perhaps even the mechanical filtration was taking place. And then at this point, notice how he was able to slide over that narrow space easily. I was struggling because I was holding a camera on a gimbal, and then one hand was trying to hold onto the fence and walk around that tiny little piece of a concrete wall right there, which is about maybe like 7-8 inches at the most. But I did make it across, and then as I said earlier, this tank right here was holding a lot of fish, smaller fish. He mentioned that these came from maybe 2 separate breeders, Dainichi and another breeder, but he couldn't recall the name, or at least I couldn't catch the name. So there was a big collection of fish on this tank, and the size on this one is a lot smaller than the previous one that we saw. I want to say 7-8 inches, all the way up to maybe like 16, 17, even some that look close to like 18 inch perhaps. But there was a lot in here. It was a heavily stocked, and he was explaining to me that this tank was where he is growing out the fish from a small size, and just waiting for them to grow out. Now, I don't know how much he can grow in this particular tank with this density and this volume of water, but he did mention that he can get them up to 60 cm in 1 year growing in this tank. I asked him, like how often does he feed, and he said that it's between 4 to 5 times a day. As you know, in my pond, I feed, a lot more often, perhaps compared to his portion. My portions are smaller and I spread out more, but for him, it's 4 or 5 times a day. And if he's growing them to 60 cm in a year, that's probably a really good growth rate. Although it's hard for me to verify that because 60 cm is a rather large size, right, for these fish to grow, and this is a rather small tank, and I'm a little skeptical. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not quite sure if that's possible with this setup, but it's not my place to really doubt what he's saying at the moment, and I just have to take his word for it. And so I was trying to get across somehow, but I couldn't, so I had to hand the camera over to my wife and then ask her to just kind of start recording. And here I was just chit-chatting with the koi owner about the different type of fish that he's got, what he's looking into, and really discussing about the filtration, talking about water change and so on. He mentioned that the water change doesn't take place too often. He actually said, I think the water change is like once a month, but he has fresh water coming in quite often, so it doesn't need to be replenished as often as those of us with a koi pond in the backyard. I think it's some type of an overflow system as well. Some of the water he catches or local water, and he just able to put them in, but supposedly it gets replaced once a month, like as a turnover. And then here we're pointing at the wooden planks underneath, and that's basically where all the brushes are. The filtrations, the biofiltration happen under these tanks, but these are like smaller, narrower tanks, and that's where he keeps all the brush and the media and the matting. And then here we're just having a random conversation about different koi farms and different breeders. And then I was asking him about if there's any other koi farms locally that I can check out. He mentioned that there was one somewhere in town, but he hasn't actually been there himself, so he couldn't provide me with a lot more details. He mentioned that the fish that he sells here mostly to the local people in the city, Dalat, but he also ships it to Saigon as well. And when he does ship them, what he does is he packages them up, he boxes them, he puts it, he bag them up, put oxygen, and take them on a short flight. The flight from here to Saigon is 35-40 minutes at the most. So it's a really short trip if he has to ship them out. But the majority of the fish here were actually or will be sold to the locals. This fella is also a pond builder who was showing some pictures of his ponds that he and probably his company or his team or his group built, and they look really nice. They have great landscape features, water features, and very large as well. So my guess is, part of his business is providing the koi after he builds the pond. And we're just sitting here talking more about some of the bigger koi retailers, koi sellers in Saigon. He talked to me about Ruby Koi Farm and the owner, and he said that that's probably the top koi farm in the world, probably one of the most or the biggest koi seller. Then I started asking him, is there a recommendation on where I should visit, because there's a bunch of Ruby Koi farms on Google in Saigon, and I kind of wanted to get the right address to locate the farm when I return to Saigon, because I'll be coming back there in the next few days as well. So I definitely want to drop by and get some really nice footage of that farm and that seller, to see the quality of the fish that he has versus what we see here versus what we see over in the States. It's always good to get an idea of like the difference between a top seller versus a smaller operation. It doesn't mean that a smaller operation has for low quality koi or anything like that. Some of them can have really nice koi. Like this fella, he told me that some of the fish he has here, is worth a lot of money, but he also orders the fish and holds them based on the client's need as well, because his operation budget isn't as big as some of the larger resellers. Yeah, so here he's just telling me, these are the address that you want to try and take a look at if you want to visit some koi sellers in Saigon, and we're just confirming where to go next. Overall, he was quite helpful with leading me to the right places to go for my next visit, and I'm hoping that when I return, I'll be able to go to Ruby and check out the stuff there. He mentioned to me that Ruby Koi Farm, has different name as well now. So some operations are called Ruby Koi Farm, and some of the other ones are called Tango Koi Farm. So I don't know much about that history, but he said that don't be surprised if the names are different. Alright, so here's me getting off of the tank, taking back the control of the camera, grabbing footage of some of the other tanks on this side. So the tanks on this side are holding fish that have already been sold and are waiting delivery to the customers. As I said earlier, because he builds ponds and stuff, he does have fish ready for the finished pond to get stocked. Unfortunately, because of the fencing around it, I wasn't able to climb onto there and give a better look at some of the fish, but there was a wide variety, and there are also very large fish as well. As you can see from this footage right here, you see some Yamabuki, you see some Shiros, you see some Korashi boys in here. Just a number of different variety. And on the tank on this side, there's also more as well. So it seems to me like a lot of the fish were already sold, and he's not filling up the other tanks intentionally, because he is actually in the process of relocating this pond or this operation. He said that he want to move to somewhere bigger and have more space to expand. So that's it for now. Here's a walk around of the tropical looking greenhouse that he's got going on. So that gives you a little idea of this small operation here, and just a glimpse into a lot of the resellers that are all over the different countries and different places. Not everything is going to be as large and big as the ones you see in Japan, and it's just interesting to see people with different size, different operation budget, and what they can have stocked at their store. So hopefully that was some small insight. And now I'm gonna go ahead and sit down and enjoy some coffee next to this koi pond.
Cái đẹp nha.